So what I want us to do is to start becoming more conscious, start choosing things in a better way for ourselves, and start creating a life that's going to gear us to really take advantage of the opportunities that are going to show up for us in the years to come.
This podcast is brought to you by the Integrated Human. We work up, down, inside out to plug yourself into your potential. If you want to see what we are up to and what's next, sign up to our newsletter or follow us on social media. If you like what we are doing, we really appreciate it if you can like our post on social media and YouTube and help us grow.
All right. Welcome to the Big and Small Podcast. I'm Jason Shields and I'm big.
And I'm Marit Gabrielsen and I'm the tiny one.
Yeah. I am back from Sweden, back from the Swedish Academy of Realistic Art.
Realist art.
You see?
Yeah, I've had issues with it because I'm trying to write it and I'm writing realistic all the time.
Yeah. And so it's realist.
Realist art. I don't know the difference though.
Well,
is there a difference?
No, I don't actually. I think if you are a person who's realistic, then you're a realist. So maybe it's the person that's, and if it's real, it is realistic, but I am a realist.
Oh, that makes sense. Because I've been wondering, because I've been writing that name a lot lately.
Yeah.
And I write realistic, and then I found them on social media, and I'm like, it's realist?
Yeah. And it's in Simrishamn in Sweden, in Skåne, which is a beautiful place, unbelievably sweet people, excellent instruction. And I will tell you one thing, that with the advent of and the development of artificial intelligence, our organic intelligence is crucial. And being a true artist, like these wonderful people are, is so important, because what is authentically human, what is coming from deep down inside and being expressed as artists do, is basically the counterweight to all of the distancing and all of the artificial and technological advancement that we're making. So it's never been more important to be an artist. And I was there watching the precision. Talk about precision in procedure that they're learning. And I didn't see one person who wasn't able to, over time, using their method, become an unbelievable artist. The art on the walls, the art they were producing. I got an opportunity to spend time drawing models with them and seeing their paintings and seeing all the great work that they were doing. Wow. What an academy. So if you guys want to study art, you got to go there, because it's absolutely unreal. I also got to meet some people who are getting classical education, young people. And to give you an idea what that does to a person when you're really working with the humanities in a real way, like our Scandinavian people were doing at SARA, the Swedish Academy for Realist Art.
Yeah, I'm not following you at all right now, you see, because I'm like classic, and then it's not that I didn't manage to follow where I thought that was the Yeah,
if you were going to be a classical painter, you need to be indoctrinated. Basically, you need to be taught these techniques. So Michelangelo and Leonardo all had this kind of an education. First, they would work with drawing, and then they worked with kind of like black and white paintings, and then they would work with color paintings and then sculpture. That's how the classical atelier education would work. And then you'd work in the shop under the master for a while, and then you would become your own artist. That's a lot of the Leonardo paintings, Leonardo works. Now they find out that maybe some of it was halfway done by somebody else, and it was just him putting his final touches on it. And there are several copies of it, because once the students learned from the master, they would kind of reproduce what they were doing, So, but anyway, I was talking to one of the 18-year-olds there, and I asked him, so what could be better about your life? Now, if you ask a normal 18-year-old, what they would guy, what would you think? What were some of the things that you would
I'm so
normally?
sorry. My brain does not work today. Only thing I could think about was ice cream. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
yeah.
I'm not the best one to ask questions like that today. I'm like,
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Time, but that's not what an 18-year-old would.
No.
I would ask for time. They would not ask for time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
Ice
I'm
cream.
sticking with ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, but
They want ice cream.
They want, a car. They want
Cheese doodles.
they
Ice
want
cream and cheese doodles.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sticking with ice creams and cheese doodles.
Yeah, something to eat, right? But I was talking to this gentleman. He's 18 years old. He's basically been followed up by his mother and father, who are professors in art and humanities at the school that I was doing the meditation event at. And
Yeah, now you're jumping because people that are listening doesn't know that you've had a meditation event.
yeah, that's right. Well,
Yeah.
I was in Sweden and I was visiting the Swedish Academy for Realist Art.
Yeah, and you also had a seminar there.
And I had a seminar there, yes, a meditation seminar for the artists because they are so important. Yeah, and I just was so overwhelmed at their excellence that I kind of got off on a tangent there. So
Yeah, I'm trying to inform people so
Yes.
that they know that they can hire you for meditation seminars.
hire me, hire us,
Well, I wasn't going, so you
Yeah,
can
well-
also hire Jason, but then you have to also
put up with
make
me.
sure that he arrives where he needs to be.
Yeah, good luck with that, right?
So.
Yeah. So anyway, I asked this amazing 18-year-old, so how could your life be better? And first of all, this guy has no Facebook. This guy has no Instagram, right? Which is pretty impressive for being 18. And he said, I would like to use less time on things that are not important for me. And I would like to even more find out what's really important for me. That's pretty profound, right?
That's a good question.
That's amazing. Like, it was a great answer to a good question. The question was really open-ended. He could have said anything. He could have said, I want me a Mercedes-Benz and I want a double helping of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. But what a beautiful and very reflected, self-responsible answer he gave me. And that's actually something that happens to people who kind of work on their humanity. They work on who they are, what they're capable of. They take responsibility for themselves, which he had done, obviously, and was really working on himself. And that's just a beautiful thing. So be an artist, express yourself, and again, visit them in Simrishamn in Sweden, in Skåne, the area of Skåne. What a great group of people. So I'm back anyway. Here I am. You said that you had some questions from last time?
No, it's not from last time. It's a question.
Ah.
Let's see. I need to bring up my mobile device. See if I can find it here.
The mobile device.
A question. So this is a question that I got through through our Facebook. And so that said, people can ask us questions there on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll bring it up in this podcast.
Yep.
For instance.
Yes.
So the question is, what's the difference between identity and ego? And then as a second question, is identity death and ego death the same?
Very cool. Very good.
So
idea.
let's start with the first one. What's the difference between identity and ego?
Size. They say size doesn't
Easy.
matter, but
Okay,
yeah.
next one.
Size. Next. Ego is basically the big umbrella where all of your identifications take place. So your personality also lives within your ego. Okay, so you have ego, which is the big umbrella,
yeah.
and then you have a smaller one, which is your personality, which is the way you are, the way you react and stuff, and that comes from your identifications.
So my ego will run through many of my identities.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
So
It's like,
my ego, my ego hat will be in my identity as a jiu-jitsu athlete or as an identity as a receptionist
Yeah.
or as a wife, or so that will run through all of them. But my jiu-jitsu identity may not interfere too much with my wife identity.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You can be one person in jiu-jitsu, like in a way, you can have one set of rules for yourself in jiu-jitsu and one set of rules for yourself at home.
Yeah, don't go choking people at home.
No, you don't. You should probably not.
Keep that at training.
And like I said before, often if you are a CEO and you come home to your 4-year-old twins and you try to CEO them, they may not appreciate it very much and it may not work very well. But you still have a sense of self that kind of is common in both of those, and that's more the ego. But so if we break it down even more, you have ego, which is kind of like the overlord of yourself. And then you have your personality, which is what you like and don't like and what you will and will not take and how you behave and all this stuff. And that's then
Funneled
down into your roles, right? But in your roles, they're also funneled down into identifications. I would say identity and identifications. So what does that mean? Okay, the difference between to identify with something or not identify with something. Let's say I show up late. Okay, unavoidable. I came late. If I identify with being on time, if I identify with being the guy that's always on time or 5 minutes early, and I show up late, then it messes me up. And then I'm upset, angry, freaked out, regardless often of the reason. Like there was World War III, there was a huge hole in the road, a storm happened, I couldn't get past the tree, not making excuses. Like if something actually happens. So if I identify very much with being on the guy that's always on time, regardless of the reason for me not showing up at time, I'm probably going to freak out and lose myself a little bit because I'm kind of dying. My idea of myself is dying. My idea of myself being that person died, or I should say having that quality. Another thing you can identify with
But
things.
then you're going to start to react, I assume.
Yeah, then you react.
So
exactly.
Then,
yeah,
because
then you react.
Yeah, you're going to start reacting and save yourself.
Yeah, you try to save yourself and you're freaking out and you're taking, you may yell at people and try to do whatever you can to get there on time, and lots of stress, and maybe it becomes a survival situation. Like a lot of people have a heart attack on their way to work because it's late, there's a traffic jam, and that pressure increases when it's just actually just sitting in a car. Like you can't do anything. You're in a traffic jam. Okay, slow down, take it easy. Yeah, but if you're identifying with being on time, you're freaking out often. So, and you'll take chances with your life to try to pass a car to get there on time, right? That's also something often. I can also identify with my car. I can identify that I have a perfect car. It's always clean. It's a really nice car. It's a super, super duper car, much better than my neighbor's car. Everybody knows me about my fantastic car. And if somebody scrapes the car, what happens? If I identify with it, you basically assaulted me. And I freak out. Oh my God, my car. I had a friend who was much like that. And I made a joke about, oh my God, dude, I went out and I came back. Oh my God, dude, I backed into your car. And he lost his shit. He lost it because his car was his life. His life. It was like he loved that thing more than anything else in the world. It was like his car. But then when he came out and he saw that it wasn't the case, it was a joke, and we laughed about it. But then it really put it in perspective for him that, okay, maybe you're a little too identified with your car, right? So the difference often is that identifications often have to do with smaller relationships and things, whereas your ego has to do with the way you perceive yourself.
But what's that difference between I'm a person that's on time?
Well, it's more like I am a good person, in rather than I'm on time or I
So
dress a
identity is
certain
more
way. It's
specific
more specific.
than the
Yes,
ego.
that's
I'm a good
right.
person can mean 100,000 different things,
Yeah,
but I'm always on time is very specific.
it's very specific. It's
Yeah.
more, yeah, exactly. It's
More
more,
funneled down
exactly.
to
It's
one
funneled
thing.
down to one thing. It's more
Because you can be a
things.
bad, but I can have an
Yeah,
ego. I'm a bad person,
yeah,
but my identity can always be on time.
yeah, exactly.
And I can have an ego. I'm a good person, and
Yeah,
my identity. I'm always on time.
yeah, and maybe if you identify so heavily with something that it actually changes the way you perceive yourself as a human being, then maybe it can go all the way through as an ego death, right? The issue with identification is that it's always very limiting, and it takes you out of the living moment usually, because you have a reaction and you're not really able to respond. It may take you some time to recover after it happens. Like, how long does it take you when you break one of those things that you believe about yourself to recover yourself again? Often, okay, you wake up late in the morning, your alarm didn't go off, you pop out of bed and you're like, oh my God. And you start, brush your teeth and get your clothes on and you drive. How long out in the day does it take you to kind of be normal again? Then you know how identified you are with being on time and everything going after a certain routine. OCD is an identification with routine, for example. It's a heavy identification and also a self-soothing reaction that if I can just do this thing, then I'm okay. So I have to do that thing. Every time I feel stressed, I do that thing. It's kind of like, it's not a thing stuck in time, but it's like a portable way to self-soothe, right? A tic is often an unconscious way to self-soothe as well. And as long as I do this thing, I'm okay. So the body does that to constantly keep things in check. And why do these things show up? It's very interesting because these identifications show up often as some kind of a coping mechanism or survival strategy that we adopt or that we were given as children. You always look both ways before you walk across the street. That's good advice, right? You always look left you look left and then right. Well, that doesn't work in England, does it?
No.
You need to look right and then left. And many, many people get run over because of this thing. Because that survival strategy is very good in the US, but it's not very good in the UK. And that's the whole point. You need to be adaptable. So if you're not able to look right and then left, in the UK, you get run over. Same thing with sometimes the situation dictates that you must relax your identification over your car or over being late or something like that. But generally, your smaller identifications generally don't completely change the way you perceive yourself as a human being. Often when people start looking at their shadow side, like Carl Jung talked about, they really discover that their ego has limited them to something very small. Now, what I'm not saying is that you should act badly and act in a way you don't believe. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you can't see that you have all possible feelings inside you from high to low and, depressions and happiness and all that. If you're just, I'm a happy person, I'm a happy person, I'm a happy person, the day that you're not happy it's a catastrophe. It's a world ender, right? And if you can accept the fact that you have maybe weird thoughts sometimes and you have, not that you have to act on them, but you accept the fact that it's okay to have those things because it's normal, because our mind does weird things, and that you can be happy and you can be depressed. That's normal also. And learn how to work with those things. You actually have a much larger quality of life. But again, identifications are generally much smaller. Now you can identify with your role as a professional, right? And that very often changes a little bit when people have kids, because then the kids become number one. I'm a dad first, and then I'm a doctor, and then I'm an athlete, for example. There are a lot of people who change their priorities when they have kids, which they probably should. They choose to have kids, they should prioritize it. But roles, you can have a role that you don't identify so much with, and you can have a role that you identify heavily with. And that's why roles are different than identifications. So that's the best answer I can give in a short format, I believe.
But then will ego, because then we'll get to what's the difference between an identity death and an ego death. And I would then assume that an ego death is much heavier to deal with. It's a bigger death, because it's a identity death more of a being able to recover from I'm always early to how long does it take for you to kind of not shame yourself for being late. While ego death is more worldview and who you are as a human being.
Exactly.
So then who you are, not who as you identify as, because I can identify as many things, but I am me
Yeah.
in all my identities.
Yeah.
So it becomes a world-shattering, destroying death, not just a situational death.
Yeah. Exactly. 100% correct. It's not it's a change in perspective.
So if I'm identified as a healer
Yes.
and I can't heal a person,
Yeah.
but then it doesn't mean that I can't be a good father.
That's
or
right.
a good CEO,
Exactly.
or a good athlete. It just,
Yes.
for me, right there, because I couldn't heal that person
Yes.
for some reason,
Yep.
which I identify as being a healer,
Yes.
that doesn't jeopardize my other roles.
Exactly.
But if I'm identify as, my ego is that
I heal all people.
I
who
heal
come
all
to me.
people, and everybody that comes, that I touches are lit up by light. I don't know. And then you figure out that it's a Facebook hate group for you.
Yeah. Then you're wrecked.
That no one everyone you touched, no one has ever been healed.
Yeah.
Then there's an ego death.
Yeah. Exactly.
So because then it doesn't matter if you're a father or a CEO or a doctor or a singer, who you are, because apparently you can't touch people at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
In your ego
yeah,
death
Yeah. Exactly.
picture.
Yeah. It's very easy, and that's the thing, that your ego, if your super ego in a way, is basically hung up on outer results, then you're going to be in trouble sooner or later, because you can't control all of the factors outside yourself. And that's what we're basically learning. We're having itsy bitsy tiny little deaths all the time when we identify with having clean pants. I'm a clean guy. But then you have a dog that jumps on you and puts muddy paw prints on your legs, and you don't have a change of pants. So are you going to spend the rest of the day hating yourself and being a little upset and maybe not being present with your patients? Or are you going to deal with being present with your patients, even though you have muddy paw prints on your pants? That's the question. And it's like, am I going to cancel all of my patients? Am I going to run out and buy new pants? How am I going to deal with it? And how long am I going to not be present, right, in order to deal with it? Now, the ego deaths, like you were saying, it's more worldview and personal philosophy, and it's the way you see yourself in the world, how you interact with the world, how you perceive yourself. And that is, when you change that, generally, if any real growth in your life happens, it's because you actually have an ego death and you reformulate yourself in a better way. That's really, really, really interesting.
How can you notice that you're having a identity death and an ego death?
Well, if you're reacting and you're not able to be present, very often it's an identity death and or amping up to be an ego death. If you're having an ego death, you often have thoughts like, it's just not the way I thought it was. Who am I? What's going on here? How? very often there's more like question mark, question mark, question mark, and a little bit of disorientation, because you just are not feeling like you have traction in the world, and the things that you thought were true are not true, and you're kind of, it feels often a little like falling in space in a way, emotionally, because it's like, whoa, wow, what's this, But you can't become greater, bigger, more powerful in yourself without expanding yourself, without opening up the box and reformulating. And that's what it is. It's opening and reformulating. They do a lot of research on the nervous system, and they found out that, you do things like chunking, for example. You put things together in groups, but are you guaranteed that those groups are correct?
Oh.
No, you have to test it in real life. Your brain actually puts things together in a system, but that system gets broken a lot because you're learning, you're growing. And that's a lot of identification. Like this is what it is. And then you find out later, oh shit, that's not the way it is at all. Oh, wow. And then you reformulate again. That is the process of evolving neurologically. We do that as children, and we do it our whole lives, actually. And they've done a lot of research on this. So the way our nervous system works is that it's a cell that basically have lots of potential, and then the environment and its relationship to the environment changes it so that it can adapt. And that's why, for example, if you lose your arm and they can put a prosthetic on, your brain can learn to rewire so that it can actually move the hand, even though it doesn't really, it's not evolutionarily made to move a mechanical hand. But it learns how, and then you do it as if it was your own hand after a while. Same thing with learning to hear. People who've never heard before, their neurons suddenly learn to adapt to the technology that's put into their head so that they can hear. And they learn in the beginning, it's like, but over time, they start hearing words and sentences and all that because of that adaptation. And that's actually the same process. So it's a natural process for us to challenge our ideas and our limits and break through them and then grow, right? So what a beautiful question. So the big umbrella, the ego, and you would like to have as an expanded and open and generalized sense of self as possible. And that's what the old school people call enlightenment.
But I think in Norway, we are, especially in Norway, I believe, we learn to not, we learn that we shouldn't have an ego.
Yeah.
Which is impossible in my experience.
Well,
it's impossible.
Yeah,
Every time I try to deny it, it comes smacking me right in the face. So,
yeah.
I can remember from my upbringing that kind of ego is I think especially in Norway because of the jantelov, that we shouldn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also a little bit of a definition of what the ego is, right?
Yeah.
Because
they say ego and egotist.
Yeah. It's like you can say that ego in most people's vocabulary means the same as selfish.
Yeah.
Me at the cost of others. That's what you shouldn't be me at the cost of others. And that's true in a sense because you live in a community. There is no you. It's always us, actually.
But that doesn't match today's society.
Exactly.
where everybody is unique and a unicorn, and society adapts to the one unicorn in 100,000 billion people.
Exactly, which is bizarre. It's a bizarre stuff. We've become so sensitive to everybody's individuality that we, in a way, are punishing the collective in order to suit a few small individuals. But this is a process of us discovering ourselves. Another one of those things is respect. If I respect you, that means that I honor the person that you are and what you do in society. That's
in Norway, if you respect, you fear them.
You fear them. Yeah, you respect a bear because you don't want the bear to eat you.
Yeah.
Right?
You fear them. You keep distance. You don't engage with it.
Exactly.
Because you respect it.
You respect it, right? I would say be shit scared and understand the limit. Figure out where the limit is. That would be my way of speaking about that thing. But the way we use the word ego is very much the same way, is that we say, okay, don't be you at the cost of others.
But that's not what, when we talk about ego here, it's not what we're
Not at
talking about.
all. Ego, we're talking about the limits of how you perceive yourself in society.
Because
Right.
if you talk to Norwegians, and I just, because
Yeah.
I see this in, I see this in myself, I see this in, well, in every Norwegian I know, you see that I don't have an ego.
Yeah.
And I go, "Ah,
Good luck with
is that your ego talking?"
Yeah.
It's so I think it has a unjustified bad reputation.
It does. And also,
It's also protecting you.
it
It's
is.
fighting for its life more times than other.
Yeah. I mean, I love people who have a strong sense of ego, both in the selfish sense and in the universal sense, only because if you have a selfish ego, you learn very quickly. You get beatings pretty quick because you realize that people don't want to work with you, people limit you, people get in your way because they don't want to, they don't want to deal with you. People feel cheated, like that's the whole point. It's like, okay, good. You get a lot of lessons really quickly. And you usually, if you're awake at all and very selfish, you realize that you need people, you would like to cooperate. If they have it good, you also get it good. In general, like I'm making generalizations here, of course, but there are bad situations where you serve people and you don't get anything back, of course. And that's actually another kind of ego we'll get back to in a second because I think that's valuable. But it's about being able to function in society, like Aristotle always said, that the supreme beatitude, the best combination is to really own your own personal uniqueness, like the artists in Sweden were doing. Really own the ability to express your uniqueness and find a way to serve society in that capacity. And when you have those two things aligned, you have the greatest happiness you can possibly have as a human, right? That's what Aristotle believed, and I do believe that's correct. And I would also take it another level. You can't really separate yourself from society if you live anywhere near people. So get used to it, learn to work with it, learn to cooperate, and be brilliant with it. So the other kind of ego is the non-selfish ego that I am above and beyond. I am a holy person.
I'm spiritual.
I'm very spiritual. Spiritual human being. Yeah, exactly. It's like people are so much better than everybody else. And I think it was Leonard Cohen that had one of his songs that you're Jesus healing all the lepers in your head, that everybody else needs your help.
But that's an interesting ego to have.
Yes.
Because it's the biggest, my experience is that they do not have an ego, and you are just, well, you have such a big ego.
Yeah. There's so much stuff. And
you have so many ideas of who you are and who you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And through that ego, that's also where you're going to start judging, right?
Very often.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Because I don't do it like that. That's not the way we do it. Oh, this is not how because you kind of reflect and you project on other people and you will judge them. Your judgment comes often from, not evaluation. Evaluation comes from seeing mechanics.
And that's fact.
Those are facts and it's easier, right?
That position doesn't work because you need to move hips to the left.
Yeah.
And you're not moving
hips to the left.
Exactly.
It's not a value statement about your humanness and about how good of a person you are, right?
Just that will not work.
That won't work. That's not going to work. If you can make it work, good luck. But I don't think it's possible. It's because
trying to turn the key the wrong way.
Yeah, and you say, "Dude, turn it the other way." Oh, okay. Oh, he made me a bad person because he told me how to turn my key.
It's always deciding.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not deciding. I'm just saying you're trying to
turn the key the wrong direction.
I assumed you wanted to open the door since you had your key in the keyhole and you were pulling on the handle.
Yeah. So
could be I read that situation wrong.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing that our value judgment of other people, our raising them up on a pedestal is the same thing as trying to break them down. A lot of people are like, well, I'm a positive person. I always put people on a pedestal until the opposite is proven. And then they usually fall into the hell, basically. And then you have people who are just pushing people down into hell. because everybody's the wrong one and they're always responsible for all the bad things. And then we're like, well, okay, maybe they weren't that bad and we let them up a little bit, but never in relationship to us because we're so amazing.
But how can you start to identify? This is also a tough one, because how can you start identifying the edges of your own? I think identity. I think people can find pretty quick. At least a lot of them, because it's kind of you acting. You go roll and you go one deeper. And while I do like being on late on time, and I like to having clean pants and okay, that's identity. And it's so
if you stink one day because you had a really hard day and you couldn't take a shower, do you go around hating yourself all day long because you smell a little bad? Or do you accept the fact that, okay, today's that day?
Yeah.
The situation is such.
Yeah. So I think most people, at least from us listener, if you start looking at where are you, is the car you're driving important for you or not? Like you can find things you identify with.
Yeah.
Eating healthy or whatever it is.
If your neighbor comes into your house and it's wrecked, it's just blown up. Okay, are you freaking out, or are you like, okay, today's that day?
But how can you find the edges of your ego without getting the inside conflict? So, okay, how can you identify the edges without triggering the ego? Is that a way? Because if you trigger the ego, then I didn't think it would be very easy.
It's
kind of just peeking. Where is it?
Yeah, here, and the reason why the eye can't see itself without a mirror.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
The tip of
I
the
just
finger,
hoped for like a.
Yes, exactly. The tip of the finger can't touch itself. Yeah, right. The other tips can touch it, but that's the whole point, because you can't see your own eye. You can't become aware in a way of where the limit is without meeting the limit. So, and when you meet the limit, then you're triggering. So let's say that I have a person that I love very much. I think that they're the best person in the world. And they have a critical lack of function in their life. Mm-hmm. And you can tell them about it, you can show it to them, but they just can't fix it. Because regardless of what you do with them, they can see the result of it, but they can't understand themselves in it in a way. There's a piece of themselves, maybe it's an old trauma.
They can't see themselves.
They can't.
Their finger can't see the tip of their finger.
The
Although
eye
it's
can't
showed,
see the eye. Exactly.
You have pointed that it's there, but they refuse to look there.
Exactly. So a great teacher would put them then in a situation where they are confronted
I never had
with that. Thank you very much.
I can laugh about it now.
Yeah, right?
Like that, it's never happened.
That's never.
I'm like, that's genius. I'm like, shit, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
But you have to be, as a teacher, brave enough and smart enough and kind enough and loving enough to put a person where they may be very uncomfortable or may not really find themselves comfortably within their sense of self, because their sense of self has that critical error. And you need to be able to open the box up for them so they can realize that, yeah, you know what? I don't have to go home and drink a half a bottle of whiskey today. Or, you know what? I can break the grip. Or, you know what? Yeah, I don't judge that person anymore because I also, in the same situation, would do the same thing. Oh my God. And that's high level. The problem today is that, like I often say in the seminars, is that the age of the guru is over, because we're supposed to be our own guru. We're supposed to be our own teacher. The issue with that is that you can't see yourself very well. So that then the responsibility is even more on you to put yourself into a situation where you're actually on the edge of your capabilities. So, for example, jiu-jitsu. Why do people love jiu-jitsu so much? Because you get put in a place where, like when you walk in there as a white belt, everybody owns you. Everybody owns you. You are at people's mercy. And You're put places where it's uncomfortable. There are positions you would never use in your normal life. You're being smashed and sweated on and stinky. And it's, of course, I'm selling jujitsu like crazy here right now, right? But
It's the best self-development tool ever.
it
I
is
can say that if you're
Yeah.
open for it. If
Yeah.
not, it's
yes,
going to take some time.
exactly. But that's exactly it. If you're open for it, the evolution that you get with jujitsu is almost infinite. It is completely life changing. But if you're not open for it,
For the development part.
for the development part, then you just basically got traumatized. You got fucked up. Well, look what they did to me. They scraped my face and they smashed me and they did things to me. I had this guy and he did this thing and oh my God. Oh, trauma. It's like, yeah, but because you chose it and you went in there and you're open for development, you're willing to take the pain, the challenge, in order to grow and become masterful.
I think one of the things I see it often is that how well one can take instruction.
Yeah.
If they're very open,
Yes.
then instructions comes easy.
Yes.
Because then maybe they're not identified as being right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or sort of have
Yeah.
their ego in I'm always right.
I'm always a win. I win. Always win.
I always win. I'm always
yeah.
a good person. I
Yes.
can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But if you have an ego where you are, where you have to be right.
Yeah.
You're always right. You always win. Or no one can tell you anything.
Yeah. Then it's gonna be a long day.
Then you have more issues in taking instructions because it becomes I thought you were wanting to open the door, and I see this more and more the more I teach. I thought you wanted to get help showing how this key works.
Yeah.
Because you were banging on the door.
Yeah.
And then you show them, turn your wrist to the left. Left?
Yeah.
Isn't that how you open your tree? Yeah. Anyways, left. And then they have a comment to you. And you go, okay, yeah, but didn't you want to open the door?
Yeah. Exactly. That's it.
And it's very interesting because it's
Yeah.
so, that phase is so individual for everybody.
Exactly. Exactly.
How much restriction you get in and how much ego is involved in
that process.
In that process. And
Yeah.
you can see that then because it's an ego thing that is also then you can see that in other parts of the life because
Yes.
the ego then goes into the different roles and identities you have.
Exactly. And the true, of course, again, another reason why it's the everybody is right and everybody has their own pronouns and everybody has it's the hashtags everywhere and all that stuff. There's so much stuff going on now, and that has a place too. By the way, that has a place too. But when you put yourself in a situation where you want maximal learning over a short amount of time, you will have discomfort, you will have things. And if you want life-changing change of evolution, you will break your own ego by definition.
You have to.
You have to. There's no way around it. So, you walk in a tough guy and you get mauled by a young, beautiful blonde lady that's 60 kilos. Your worldview is broken. Like who you thought you were is broken. I went in Sweden, I actually took two very fine gentlemen to jiu-jitsu club there. And they were like, holy shit, there was a girl there and she was beating us up. And I'm like, yeah.
She should.
She should. She's a brown belt, right?
She should.
Yeah, she should. And it's like, oh my God. Like this, it changes you because you feel like you're strong. Superman, you're physical, you're a young guy, you have testosterone. And then you realize, wow, this changed the way I look at everything.
If you're able to take that.
If you're able to take it.
Then.
Exactly.
Then life starts to become much bigger.
Exactly.
But then it depends if you have to find an excuse, I guess, or start judging it and finding an excuse so your ego, instead of expanding, it start patching itself up again.
Exactly.
And making it a little bit smaller than it was.
Exactly.
And that way you're gonna, and in that way you're gonna get a smaller and smaller and smaller life, and you're gonna judge more and more. Right?
Exactly. And that's it. That's the whole point, that if you allow yourself to be smaller because of challenges instead of expand your definition of self, then it's going to be a long, horrible life. And that's really the case that, I asked this question to a lot of people. So is your life a success story or is it a tragedy? And basically the answer to that is this process. Are you able to expand with the way you experience your life and evolve? Or you make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and avoid all challenge so that you can kind of maintain some semblance of self-respect?
But then making it smaller, then you're also giving all your power, you're giving it to the outside, right?
That's right. And you're also going to live with regret.
Sorry, I didn't think about that. Kierkegaard.
Oh yeah. Søren Kierkegaard.
Well, we can. That's a nice thing to finish with. And just talk about the regret.
Yeah.
That it was funny.
Exactly.
Because I was like, that sounds smart. He's a philosopher. And then, that's stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is funny, guys. Søren Kierkegaard, he's one of the greatest philosophers. You check him out, okay? Danish guy, Kierkegaard. It's Kierke, G-A-A-R-D, okay? And if you haven't read him, you should, because he's very interesting. And he came with this quote, like, if you marry, you're going to regret. If you don't marry, you're going to regret. If you get the job, you're going to regret. If you don't get the job, you're going to regret. If you have kids, you're going to regret. If you don't have kids, you're going to regret. So what's common with everything?
He's going to
regret.
And now at this point, I was thinking, yeah, of course.
Of course.
Because you're going to regret no matter what. I understand that's life is life, and no matter what you do, it's regret. Yeah. Okay. Smart dude. And then
smart dude. And then I'm like, so what's his worldview and personal philosophy?
I'm like,
he's stuck where? He's stuck in regret, guys. Like everything, his whole tone, his whole focus is the fact that he's going to regret. Regret will be a part of everything if you're awake, but it's only a very tiny, itsy bitsy part of it. But for him, it was everything. So what he needed was some neurogenic integration technique to kind of shake his nervous system loose. He needed a little soma breath to get some focus. He needed to come to one of our seminars and learn about his worldview and personal philosophy and do a little bit of moksha meditation with us to realize that he is a total human being with every possible wavelength of emotion available for him at all times.
But he would regret going to that.
But he would regret it. He would open his life up, but he would regret
it.
Exactly.
I don't think he would have regretted it. It's just interesting. What I found very interesting is that you have a very great philosopher like that. And he was famous. Even I've heard about him. Yeah. And you can still see that he wasn't done developing as a human, because you don't have to have self-development to be very good in something.
That's true.
But if you want to have a total life, a big life, then it's needed. You can say that Donald Trump has everything, but I don't think that guy is happy.
Oh my God.
I don't think he has a happy life. I don't think he feel anger and jealousy and having to get something and disrespect every day. And he has a nice car of 15
need to lie.
And 100,000 beautiful cars and a beautiful wife, and he has all that, but I don't think he's happy.
No,
I don't think he has many moments in his life where he feel good.
There's no peace there.
There's no peace there. And with Kierkegaard, a great philosopher, don't think. Well, he was regretting.
He was regretting everything, man.
That's not a good place to live your life.
No, it's not.
So it's not that you can't be great in something. You can be a good businessman or a philosopher and be the best in your field.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's not more for you.
That's right. There's always a chance to expand. And weirdly enough, when you do expand yourself, your technical excellence in other things increases as well. That's it. So remember, you matter. Unless you multiply yourself by the speed of light squared, then you're energy. But if you can't be energy, matter.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you felt we added something to your day and hopefully your life. If you want to learn more, subscribe to our newsletter and find us at integrated-human.com. That is integrated-human.com. Integrated Human on YouTube and other social media platforms. Have a great day, and thank you again for listening. Love, light, and upgrade from us at the Integrated Human team.